Right now, we're going to welcome our dear, beloved engineer Kazawadi Papias Dedeki, the president of the Federation of African Engineers Organization. So, Engineer Kazawadi, please, the floor is yours. A round of applause to welcome him.
Sir, in your honor and respect, we would request that you try to be as fast as possible so that we can recover up. It's so bad that we are eating your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my honor and pleasure to stand before you, more especially because the audience is, I see a lot of young people. And I think you are the first profession that has the biggest number of, relative to your numbers and the age, of course. So clap for yourselves. There is a theory that I read about listening. And they said that when you have an audience like this and get the attention of at least 20%, you would be the most. So I beg that at least that 20%, I get it. I need your attention. What I'm going to share with you is the experience. But in the morning when I just came in, I just met the journalist and they asked me a question, which in my opinion, and they said that all the morning sessions, the quantity surveyors are blaming the engineers. Is it right that the engineers take out their jobs? Yes. But I want to tell you that it is not true. I don't remember the audience that our president was talking to when he mentioned of the grasshoppers. So the grasshoppers fight one another when at the end they are going to end at the part. So honestly, don't blame the architects, don't blame the engineers, don't blame the planners. First of all, blame yourselves. You blame yourselves and take an action of steps to make so that you can do it better. The presentation I have made is enhancing built environment consultancy. I put firms because when you talk of consultancy, it's a team, not an individual. It involves the architect, the quantity surveyor, depending. Even the engineering has a lot of disciplines. So we all meet in a firm or in a company by the contractor, but depending on one another. So our profession forces us to collaborate more and to engage more than any other professions that I have seen. So, but please, I will not talk about myself. Maybe at the end of the presentation you will have known me. But what I can tell you, I'm an engineer. I'm the president of the Federation of Africa Engineering Organization, the position that I've held since January last year, and it is ending December this year as well. So it was a privilege to go through it. In addition, I also got the chance to learn about corruption, because in 2019, again, I was made the chair of the Committee of Anti-Corruption at the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. It's an umbrella organization for engineers. It's based in Paris. So I had also the opportunity and the privilege to learn more about how corruption relates to our professions. Another privilege that I have had since 1996, let's say 98, I was working in the private construction sector as a contractor. From that time, What I'm going to tell you, if I did not learn it in school, I learned it by default. So I know it. You may choose to take it, but also you have a choice to make whether you agree with it or you don't agree. That's why in my presentation I have put a disclaimer. It's not always common for people to present. Please get to the next stage. Well, I am not standing here as the president, but I have just put this company because this company brings together what I feel I should be sharing, not only you, but to other professions. So I decided to form a company called TasksAfrica. Tasks stands for talent, attitude, skills, knowledge, and style. Maybe you will learn about it. Those are the links. And we are trying to build a learning platform of which is going to benefit built environment professionals. Next stage. Why is this presentation that I'm making to you important? It is because there is no shortcut to achieve greatness. This is what I have seen through my experience. But also, the farms to grow and be sustainable, there is a need for the process re-engineering. This is a common term that has a relationship with the PDCA that the previous speaker was talking about. Always when you do certain things, you need to go back and say, where have I done wrong? Where have I done right? What challenges do I have? What can I improve on? So this is a simple part of the business process re-engineering. In relation to Rwanda, through my experience, the game changer for PRB is the professional regulatory bodies, of which RIQS is also part of. But I'm looking at the built environment where you would find the engineers, you would find the architects, you find the planners, you find the environmental scientists, you find the economists, so many professions like you know them. But to be able to do the re-engineering and be impactful to our country and strategies, we need to do what I am just talking about now. The game changer for this is about the industry, the academia, and the professional bodies. Let me tell you one thing. I'm not sure how many of you have ever taken time to think about it. In Kinyarwanda baravuga ngo umwana inkoni uyigorora ikiri mbisi. Ngo umwana apfa mwiterura. Sibyo? So, be the engineers, be the quantity surveyors, be the architects. We have a problem of the training itself. The education that we receive is disconnected. What do I want to mean about this disconnection? Is because academia is independent of the private sector, the professional practitioners. The industry is also disconnected from academia. In other parts where there is a good improvement, there is always a relationship between the between the education industry and actually the professional bodies become, they relate them. So in our country, we don't have it. We have academia, yes. We have the industry, yes, but we are all disconnected. We don't feed in one another. And this leads to graduating students who don't meet the job market. This leads to no companies to employ the people who are graduating, because when you go for bidding, because it is very easy for someone to open up a company and call himself or herself a consultant, he will bid for very small money because he does not know the mathematics and what is involved. A project which was supposed to take 10 million, he would charge 700. And yet, the gaps in our regulations will award that job, and they forget all about the people who would have survived that 10 million. So this is something that I have experienced. It is still in place, despite, of course, the noises we make. Maybe we haven't made enough noises, but it is a big challenge because we don't have sustainable companies. If you don't have sustainable companies, you cannot have the sustainable academia. You cannot, if you don't have professional bodies, you cannot have the good academia and the good industry practitioners. That is where I see we need to think about that. We have the Vision 2050, of which every Rwandan, at least who have graduated in any field of university, would need to have his or her own contribution. But without that framework, you will not contribute enough. You may contribute, but contribution that is substantial may not be very good. I'm not sure how many people are aware of the NDCs. NDC is a nationally determined commitment. How many have known it? How many in this room? By show of hands. NDCs. Oh my God. You are graduates. This is an important document for the government, and it has a lot of opportunities for you guys. Where do you think you are going to get employment? Where do you think you are going to innovate and create opportunities? So the same applies to Vision 2050 as well. Because of that gap of disconnect, students are not very well connected or aligned to explore the opportunities that can be found in the vision. And this again stagnates or slows the process of development for the country. We keep complaining, we keep blaming one another that opportunities are taken by so and so, but in real terms, we have not really done enough to achieve that. Also, the enabler for acceleration of AFCTA and African Agenda 2063. The relationship again, AFCTA stands Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Rwanda is among the top signatories. Our president was the champion of African Union reforms, which brought that until I think last year, a few years ago, when he shifted to the president of Kenya. But this, for you guys get opportunities, you need to know the NDCs, you need to master the Vision 2050, you need to understand the protocols that are contained in all those documents. And this is the role and responsibility of the professional bodies, at least to create that sort of awareness. Then SDGs, of course, SDGs are related and incorporated in these national development strategies and African Union. Let's get to another slide. This is the disclaimer that I made. Forget about it. Then let's go next. The reality now of the market. You deserve to keep your opinion, but that is what I believe. There is no proper accreditation framework within the built environment. Hence, free entry to practice by anyone, anytime. This brings those challenges that I told you. You get in, when you are hit because you were not prepared, you under cost, you go to prison, you sell, you lose your property. Those are the effects that we keep seeing. And because those who experience them more run away. When they run away, you will not, the newcomers will not know what happened to them. So institutions don't grow because the sharing of knowledge and information is limited. Why is it limited? The framework. The framework is not there. Built environment sector is not properly regulated. This one, I think you all know it. That's why I mentioned that let's not fight the engineers, the architects or what. Rather, let's build a coalition together so that we can make our voice to be heard. Otherwise, working in silos or in isolation will not let us achieve what we intend to achieve. Many players in the professional practice that are not qualified have no. This is absolute, because in other regulated professions, there is a difference between graduation, professional preparation to be accredited, and then you get licensed to practice. In our country, it is already well established in the legal, in medical, in accounting, but engineering and allied professions within the built environment, that gap is still. Why? Because there is that disconnect. So that's why it is difficult to know actual number and sizes of the built environment firms as a result of multiple regulators working in disconnect and fragmented. The other day I was checking at the website of RPPA. There are more than 200 consulting firms. When you go in the engineering regulation practice, I think they have less than 100. You find this other part is, so that disconnect creates the gaps and the room to even allow non-competent or non-qualified to run the companies. So it's high time that we work on it. Several regulators work in isolation. I have listed them. If you have anything to disprove that, maybe it will stand for another day. There is no proper framework for the built environment consulting firms in the accreditation process. Usually, in countries, you find that a country is not established by anybody. Rather, a certain qualified and competent professional with a minimum number of years of experience, qualifications, such that he is able to establish an organization that will even take to prepare and be mentoring the graduates, take them through the processes. In the legal practice, I'm sure they are better. They may be having other challenges, but I think on that they have already achieved it. So, as built environment professionals then, we also need to advocate for this. Existing framework for the built environment practitioners in sharing knowledge. This one is a fact. Maybe there is no even to even provide and give evidence. Let's go to another. Now, the reality of survival. Remember, most companies in Rwanda, you ask someone, can you take 5 graduates to do the training? He will tell you, I don't have a job. How will I accommodate them? What will they do? Why? Because we have ignored or forgotten to work on the sustainability. Most companies are just at the survival. A few weeks ago, I was talking to some professional in the procurement. And he told me that in a bid to supervise a 5 billion project, they received the bidders to provide supervision services. The lowest was 87 million. And he complied with all the paperwork and requirements that the procurement required. Other bidders were in the range of 300 million up to 700. They automatically doubted that this person at 87 million would not do the project. But the law says you need to call him or officially communicate, and he confirms. If he does, there is nothing you will do other than awarding. So they awarded. But they know, the question remained, is this person going to be responsible on the quality of what is going to be delivered? 5 billion at 87. These professions of ours, basically, even when you combine all of them, the engineer, the architects, where they are required, the quantity surveyors, and at least it ranges between 8% to 12%. But this person now, calculate, 87 million is what percentage of 5 billion? Tell me. What profession is he going to employ? How much will he pay him? So that is our problem. And this is the reason I said, before we blame others, let us first blame ourselves. Because this is a person who has taken the privilege of another company that was going to provide what it takes. The effect of it, no graduates are going to be placed. Because nowhere. That person, you cannot tell me, will provide any supervision or the mentorship for the graduates. So there are very many challenges in this, and those questions I'm sure you have read, because the survival usually forces you to think short term, because you are looking at between now and tomorrow. But for a country that have been rebuilding for the last 30 years, surely we needed to have graduated from this and start thinking of sustainability in building companies that will last beyond our lifespan as individuals. And this is the best practice from other countries. That is the main reason I'm going to share this slide, and maybe for purposes of time, I don't need to read word by word. Let's go to another. The consequences now, we have too many companies doing services of quantity surveying, architecture, engineering, professionals cross-cutting and entering into other, because there is no proper framework that is there. There is no accreditation processes that are regulated in place. At the end of the day, we blame one another, but the reality, we remain too small and fragmented, and we cannot even compete with those ones who are very and better prepared. That is the reality. But maybe I'm not sure if it is the good news. It's not only our country, rather most developing countries, especially African countries. We have not graduated from that. Despite many years of independence. Another stage, another. Now, the challenges that I'm going to present to you, I will stand to be corrected. The experience that I mentioned my experience is where I learned by default without, you pay heavy tuition fees. I learned that in the field of entrepreneurship, of course you cannot establish a consulting firm or a construction company if you are not an entrepreneur. But if you want to be a good entrepreneur, and my experience, and by the way, a research that was not done in Rwanda but done in some developed countries, indicated that the biggest risk of these endeavors is the knowledge and skills and experience. For Rwanda, a person graduates today, or even when he is before graduation, he has already registered the company in RDB, because it is easy to register and open a company. Before he is trained and mentored, he's already bidding with the one who could have mentored this person. Yes. This is why you find a difference of 300 million and 87. And at the end of the day, all of them will not last. So we are responsible for killing ourselves. Let's take the blame first. Another problem is tax. My dear friends, tax is a law, and the law does not save you when you don't know it. You cannot go to excuse yourself in a court and say, I did not know it. Whether you know it or not, it will act or it will be applied on you. Because when you go in business, there are different types of taxes that you need to know. At least you need to go and do a certain training. Because remember, number one risk is expertise. Even not knowing the laws that are related. There are people who are doing quantity surveying and yet they don't know the government papers and policies that have gone through all this. So you need to always keep yourself aware and informed. This is a law. You take it or leave it, but the best way to manage it, you need to take that seriously. Then another detractor is the debts. The debts I have experienced myself and several friends of mine. You go to the bank for an overdraft against a contract you have secured. You are given a certain amount, but once the money is given to your account, to your bank, number one problems to solve is not a project. Ubanza kwisana. Murabizi cyangwa mwarabyumvise. So, this also leads to problems. So you need to know the money from the bank out from anybody is not yours until you make yours using that money. So it requires skills and knowledge about it. Then, of course, inflation is not much because in any way it's not a direct result of yourself. You can't control it. Now, the causes of these challenges, number one, I mentioned it earlier, is the lack of proper professional regulatory bodies and the relationship between the industry and academia. This one is a must. If we are to deal with the problem permanently and sustainably, we need to build and enhance that. There is also lack of built environment professional accreditation framework. I don't know for quantity surveyors, a graduate quantity surveyor, before he or she gets licensed, how many years and what procedures does he or she go through? Do we have a law that stipulates that before you even go to charge a customer as a quantity surveyor, you must have gone through a mentorship and accredited, given a license? I think just as much as it is in engineers and architects, there are even other people who are making more money than you who have even joined the profession, right or wrong? So that's another big problem. And of course, this is not very common in my case studies. I will bring it in my presentation where you do groom and grow. It has only worked in China. In 1981, China started the process of grooming and growing. Now that's why they have managed this Belt and Road project. You see a lot of them in every African country running projects. It's because they did that. And you will see some details and the link for you to get more details. Let's go next. What are the strategies now after all these problems? What should we do? I think As the country is continuing to grow and develop new infrastructure within and outside, there is a need to operationalize the built environment farms. What I wanted to mean here is, at least whether it is quantity surveying, whether it is engineering, whether we need to benchmark our practices on the internationally known standards, because we will not be an island in what we are doing. Establish and operationalize professional and consulting accreditation framework. Yes, getting registered with the RDB is one step, but there should be other steps to test and see whether the person going into the profession and going to employ others, he or her is also good enough to provide that service. That is a requirement. There is also a need to establish multidisciplinary coalition. Let us not look at one another as we are just, we complement one another. But for our work to be easy and enjoyable, that relationship, that collaboration needs to be given a certain framework. That's what I wanted to mean. We need to also adopt artificial intelligence technologies. This is something that is running very fast. There is nothing we can do about it except preparing ourselves to go with it. Rather, if we really want to remain relevant. Capacity building is a game changer. For me, I have seen the more you learn, the more you discover that you need a lot more to learn. That's what I have discovered. I'm not sure if it is me who is stupid or not good enough, but it is evident to many people. People who have learned are the ones who even keep learning. So as a profession and under your regulatory profession, you need to keep yourself updated in terms of skills and competencies of your area of specialization. Another aspect that, of course, for the government, there is a need for infrastructure report card. Why report card? Report card recognizes the minimum standards for any infrastructure that is put in place, so that even when they are doing the evaluation and the valuation, it becomes the guide. It even enables people who do the long-term planning. When do you replace this? When do you have to do the repair? But if we are acting in a framework that is not very well harmonized, it means you can construct a road supposed to be 20 years and it is finished in 10 years. Because there is no evidence of the report card, then you are caught and prepared and the development is affected. Enhance collaborative partnership. Dear friends, built environment farm succession plans is very important. I have seen and spoken to different individuals, especially in the engineering. Everyone wants to have his own company. Everyone wants to have his own. But where will that own company take you? When others are bringing and merging their small to get the big. But how, as professionals, how will you grow professionally when you have not even practiced working together, collaborating together with your peer, with your quantity surveyor, with your engineer you meet every day? So we need to learn about it. I can tell you a few companies of whose owners, they have built names and reputation. They are getting away because of retirement, because of age, but that is natural. If there was a succession plan, young people like you and the energetic would be the ones, instead of looking to go to RDB to register, engage with this person. How do I remain and keep this company and it remains relevant. That is something that we need to think of. I know we have few companies, but instead of creating many, many smaller ones, we can build on those that are in place and create conglomerates. Then this is also another detailed part of the strategy, continuous improvement. When we have a regulatory authority like this one of the requirements for you to be licensed every year is CPDs. You have to prove and demonstrate that at least, otherwise your degrees could expire. Get next. Capacity building, this is something that I would say I discovered it. When you go in entrepreneurship, you talk of business and you want profit as an ultimate goal. But I came to realize that when you are building a good company and see the profit as an acronym of people, resources, organization, formula, identity, and training, gives a good foundation in running and pushing hard for the organization. Because by so doing, you will be looking at the people. This is in case when you are recruiting, people who are assets, not liabilities. You will be looking at ways and processes that enables you to utilize resources efficiently. And the throughput organization that leaves no gaps of manipulation. The formula that creates sustainability, you think of succession plan before you even go to retire. The training is also a good way that leads to effectiveness. It does not matter how much, whether you have to put too much money in terms of training, but even sharing of knowledge. But when it is an inbuilt in an organization, whether small or big, it keeps and enables the organization run more profitably. Next, please. These ones, I will not talk about them because the previous presenter talked about them, is about leadership and management. One thing that I learned in the project management, of which QS engineers, architects, we find ourselves in playing different roles, but we are always dealing with four items, which is the scope, he talked about it, which is the cost, which is the time, and which is the scope, the time, the quality, and the quality. So, and in doing so, and in addition to what my friend Robert taught you earlier, is that when you are an entrepreneur, you need to know or learn the skills of differentiating and knowing when are you going to act as a leader, when are you acting as a manager. Because a leader is defined as doing right things, contrary to a manager who has to do those things right. No tolerance of mistakes. So when you know it, it's very easy to focus and to mitigate the risks within the process. Next. Of course, the trust in an organization is a big power. When you are 5 or 10 working together, having high levels of trust, mistakes are less, losses are less, and even deliver on time becomes like. But that care I talk about is coach, align, recognize, and engage. It's very good usually when you are working with people. You recognize people who have done well, and you inform those who have not done well. And if you build that in an organization, it enables the organization to grow well. Next. Sustainable practices, I talked of corruption now. Ethical behaviors is another challenge that we have to deal with if we are to be sustainable and if we are to create or to build companies that will last longer. You will go the details for matters of time. Next. Of course, collaboration with the other organization is very important. Nga kanyoni iyo katagurutse ntikamenya aho bweze. Kandi iyo wigira ku bandi bigutwara igihe gito gusumba igihe wajya kwihinga muri ibyo byose. I won't deal much also. These are organizations related to engineering. Maybe quantity surveying also have other organizations. Next. Of course, we have to think of the environment. That one, I won't dwell much on it, but it's important. Next. The technology that we talked about. Today, people can manage projects without them being there physically. So if you don't know those tools that can help you or update you, you will be lost. You won't get employed. So it's important to always keep yourself alert and know what the trend is bringing. Next. Also the integrity, the ethics, of course, I heard in the morning you are thinking of creating the code of conduct, the internal rules, which is a good way of building professionalism. Also, no much. So the case success story is of the Chinese. That is the link that where you can access the whole document. But you can imagine they started it in 1980, but they started practicing it or enforcing it in 2001, after 20 years. So the processes are never easy. We should not give up. But if you click on that, you will find the whole document, which is good. My recommendation then is that we need to urge the government to establish accreditation framework, not only for quantity surveyors, but for all built environment professions. Because we need one another, we depend on one another, and we would not benefit if you regulate one and leave the other. So it's important to deal with all the professions and have same treatment and same standards of practice. Number two, built environment professional bodies should engage and increase advocacy. This time the collaboration, instead of the president of engineers or the president of QS, create a coalition and then you go together to negotiate for the change that is needed. That is collaboration. Now my conclusion, I say, as professionals, we do not have an abundance of resources, nor do we have the political power to bend things our way. However, we do have the duty and capabilities to make a difference. Our skill set and competencies are what makes us relevant to our country, and that's our main weapon and the bargaining chip to use. I thank you very much.
Very much, dear speaker. Trying to speed up things, please give him another round of applause. I think that was very educational. We're gonna take no more than 3 questions to the speaker. 3 questions and we proceed with the program. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. I thought they could slip through that. So anyone with a question, please raise your hand. Okay, thank
you. Thank you for presentation, Mr. Kazawad. I would like just to ask on the issue of grow and grow. That what are aspects of groom and grow in quantitating career?
Thank you very much. The concept of groom and grow, it is the government that grooms and grows. For example, they would sit and say, looking at the history of the infrastructure projects we have, the budget we spend every year, we can manage to afford, let's say, 50 consulting companies in the areas of quantity surveying, engineering, architecture, and that would mean they will put a policy to protect those companies to get the jobs. And those companies, when they get the jobs, it would mean they would also facilitate the academia to give training and the mentorship, so that the skills is improved within that. But it's not simply getting there, rather they set criteria for qualification to come into that. And that process goes through evaluation and assessment. But the moment you get there, it means those companies, if it is accessing finance, if it is accessing projects, if it is accessing skills that they don't have, and actually that is how countries, especially Asian countries and Chinese, have done it and are still doing it. So I think it is a very good way for sustainability. You cannot build infrastructure built by foreigners without thinking 20 years from those infrastructures, how the skills is left behind, how they are going to be maintained, and how they are going to be improved. So groom and grow policy is a game changer solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazawadi, I mean. We're not going to take any more questions right now.
Ready? Yes. Just one. Because you are ready.
If I remember correctly, I think the first time we met when we were trying to set up the Institute of Quantity, well, then it was a chapter in RIA. We met and you have been one of the person who really supported us throughout. So the question is not really personal. But you mentioned something about collaboration between the different professions, in the industry, being architects, engineers, and you mentioned something about what the journalist said. But then I want to ask, as an engineer, how do you see quantity surveyors? Is it really, no, let me not try to answer part of it, but sitting in the position of an engineer, how do you perceive the quantity surveying profession? Because what we've been discussing is about us QS, but then it's good to have someone who has another eye. So how do you see us?
Well, quantity surveying is a noble profession, first of all. But it is a profession that, just like other professions, that is dependent on other professions. Your services have limitations just as much as other professions have limitations. So the good results of those professions would only come through holistic collaboration. That's why I used the word built environment. And I think in my conclusion, I said, you cannot regulate only one profession and leave others and believe you are going to get what you want. So the profession and the quality of their profession is usually better and impactful when there is a maximum collaboration of other related professions. I'm not sure if I have answered you according to what you expected, but that's how I perceive it myself.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Engineer
you.
Kazawadi.